you rise up, you're going to hold your flag in the air and deliver your line. And remember, you've just stormed the outskirts of the Capitol, arm in arm with your brothers and sisters.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
People of Panem, we fight, we dare, we...
Does she know the line?
I know it.
Okay,
I know it. I'm
all right.
sorry.
Let's do it
She's
again.
warming up.
Okay, all right. With energy, go.
People of Panem, we fight, we dare to end this hunger for justice.
You've just been in battle!
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
My name's Adam.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Real Movie Guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies. On today's episode, we're taking a look at The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. Katniss Everdeen is in District 13 after she shatters the games forever. Under the leadership of President Coin and the advice of her trusted friends, Katniss spreads her wings as she fights to save Peeta and a nation moved by her courage. Guys, Hunger Games has been a journey of emotions so far at this point. I would even say I think I've garnered maybe a slightly new respect in some ways for the series than I did when we originally started, because I'll be honest, I even said at the top of the series that I really did not enjoy the first Hunger Games movie. I thought it was fine. You know, I think I gave it like a 7 around there, like an average score, because it's not terrible. But after seeing like, you know, Catching Fire again and kind of like that reigniting my fire for the series, kind of enjoying it, I was interesting to see what I thought of the Mockingjay, because there's a lot of issues with this, and I don't know how much it has to do with the movie. I think it's more from a studio and writing perspective. There are a lot of issues, but I gotta tell you, as far as Mockingjay Part 1, it's gonna be hard too to talk about Part 1 and Part 2 of a movie, because they are so literally interconnected, because there are two halves of the same movie. I found this kind of to be a slog to get through. While there is some stuff I think that is interesting, a lot of it I think has to do with some of the perspective choices and maybe just kind of the meandering I feel like the plot does in this movie to get to the eventual Part 2. But, you know, I feel like a lot of that new respect that I've garnered for the Hunger Games, I kind of lost again by watching Mockingjay Part 1, because, again, quite honestly, it wasn't my favorite movie in the series by far. Adam, how about you? What'd you think? This is your first time watching this, so I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was, especially coming from the high
Right.
of Catching Fire and there being a such lack thereof Hunger Games in the Hunger Games.
Right.
It was kind of upsetting to, like, I don't know, it was just kind of boring to me.
I know, and I kind of do respect some of the choices they made, and I think in a lot of other series it could have worked, because again, you're kind of going against the grain of what the Hunger, you know, there's no Hunger Games spoilers,
Right.
kind of in Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2. Maybe there's an argument for something along the lines in Part 2, but as far as Part 1, I kind of do respect the choice a little bit here, because they are trying to further the world story, I think, in this, but I think the perspective that they were telling it from, that's kind of where it lost me, I think, and it's something we're definitely going to talk about. I really can't wait to see what you guys think. Julie, how about you? A big super fan of the series over here.
So I think I mentioned this in the last review. This is like my third rewatch of the series in a very short amount of time. And with Mockingjay 1 and 2, I've been yo-yoing where I'm at a really low with it and then still at a low. But now I'm kind of on that upswing where I'm finding myself enjoying it more than I remembered and having a better appreciation for it. But I agree with both of you. Catching Fire is my favorite book and movie of the series. So coming from that just amazing movie into the more subdued Mockingjay Part 1, where it's a lot of politicking, which again, I appreciate now more than I did originally. I'm definitely missing the action and specific character interactions that we had in the previous two films that we're not quite getting in this one.
Right, and I think that's my issue, is the politicking. Well, again, I do appreciate what they were trying to do with that. Adam, it just feels like a slog, I think, a lot of the time. I don't know how much I appreciate just seeing essentially what this movie kind of boils down to for me is about Katniss filming propaganda videos. That's what this is really about. The whole movie is literally,
100%.
it's literally just that. And I really don't, I don't know about you guys. I don't really find that interesting. Maybe like once, sure, but not the whole movie, a whole runtime of 2 hours and 3 minutes.
It really does feel like it's just setting up that part 2.
Right.
And I don't know. I was debating watching it. I was like, would I have preferred this to have been one just longer movie? Probably.
Right.
I think it probably would have been better. I don't know, maybe make it a 3.5 hour movie and you probably could have cut out so many other things. Because, I mean, it just feels like they're padding for time most of the movie.
Right. And we have to remember when this came out. This was in the 2014-15 range of movies where it was the hot thing in young adult series to split everything into part 2s. Harry Potter did it. Twilight did it. Well, I guess you could technically, I mean, it isn't really connected, but The Hobbit kind of did it where they split one book into 3 movies. It's just something, it was a thing where the studios just got super greedy and they knew they could capitalize by expanding the story. While I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, I think that could be good for fans, right? I think we could get a lot more of the things like we want from the books out of these movies, but it doesn't feel like that when I'm watching Mockingjay. Again, we're not making comparisons to the book here, but as far as what we're given, it's just very boring and dry. And like Adam said, this is like the prequel to the finale. And I feel like there had to be other stakes involved in this movie, which there just weren't for me.
Yeah, 100%. Because you're missing so much action, and from a typical story, point, you have your rising action,
yeah,
the climax, and then falling action.
And that's what the problem is with the part 1 and part 2.
Right. Yeah, when you split one complete work like that, you're just pretty much getting your rising action in one movie.
Right, and I feel like there's a lot of like starts and stops in this movie, and I think Adam, you kind of alluded to that too, where there's a lot of, at least I see a lot of the decisions Katniss is making. Like she's making like a decision where like to feel one emotion, and then suddenly she just backtracks on it for apparently no reason, and then kind of relearns it all over again several times throughout the runtime of this movie. Especially when it comes to the whole Peeta debate. I do like that twist. I think Peeta being missing is a very fun twist, and unfortunately though, I think the series kind of leaned into one of its weaker moments is the romantic plot. I think the romance subplot is very hampering on my enjoyment of this movie too. And not because I'm an old cranky old man here. I think it just really isn't that well done or that interesting. It unfortunately makes everyone involved look kind of bad except for Peeta. And I think that's also one of the problems too. Actually makes Peeta look bad. It makes him look like a beta boy, That's not so great for him.
Listen, he was captured and tortured by the Capitol. I don't even go there.
We'll talk more about Peeta when he's actually in the movie, but as far as this is concerned, yeah, Katniss, I don't think they do a great job, but I want to talk a little bit about the world building, because I do think the world building is actually interesting here. Adam, how did you find the world building for this movie? Because again, there's a lot of very cool things that are actually involved as far as what the world state is like.
I liked that. I liked that stuff because it's like, that gave me that information that I was looking for, I guess, in the first movie that I wanted more of. I wanted to know, like, why is all of this happening? Where is all of this taking place? Like, I liked more of, that background, I guess.
And do you like the idea that a lot of the people we didn't know that were good, bad, we thought they were bad guys. Like Plutarch, we thought was a bad guy at this point.
Right.
Now we find out he's a good guy and he's involved. I kind of like that angle that they went in. Now we have like a resistance going. I think that was a clever choice for the series.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I liked because it definitely caught me off guard.
Right. And it makes it more intriguing too, because then you add this extra layer to it. And, it's a shame because I think there is something here, right? I think there is. I just think it's really bogged down by the choice to split it into 2 movies and then to artificially inflate it. It feels like, I'm trying to think of like the right phrasing. It feels like we're crawling, right? And then I think when we get to part 2, I think we're going to have another take on, what we're talking about here. But as far as this movie, it's like we're crawling to the finale. And as far as action, I was kind of left underwhelmed by anything. I know there's one scene when, was it District 13? It's kind of, it's like, was it like an earthquake or something like that?
Oh, no, they're being bombed.
And that could have been cool, but that was like really the only action in the movie?
No, there was 2, and they're 2 of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually. When you're seeing the other districts inspired by the Propos begin to rebel. So you have District 7, where they're running in the woods and climbing up the trees, and then they set off the bombs.
Oh, I do remember
I thought that was really cool. And I love, what did they say? they say a really cool line from the propaganda, like, you know, fires catching or something. And then my favorite is when they blow up the dam in District 5, because they start off and they're carrying their bombs and they're singing Hanging Tree as they're walking in this huge group. And then they go and blow up the dam. I just thought that was such a really impactful scene. And I would have liked more of it. Maybe like, well, a montage would have been too cheesy. Maybe like one more cut of, you know, a district kind of uprising, you know, and seeing the impact that it's having. Because the capital's really starting to get beat up. And the dam especially.
And I think there's an interesting plot there too, because I like the idea Katniss is kind of this is treated as this otherworldly figurehead of a rebellion, and she kind of is reluctant to be that. But I feel like, again, because of the disservice I feel like the plot is doing, it's just kind of like there's no forward momentum with that. Like after she shoots down the plane when they bomb the hospital, which is actually a good scene. I do agree with you. I completely forgot that.
Yeah, I forgot about that too.
Yeah, I did forget about that. But that is a very impressive and emotional scene. But the problem is she doesn't learn from that scene. It just kind of backpedals again, like, oh, I have to be strong. I have to be part of the rebellion. Oh, I don't want to be anymore. Okay, I'm done. And then like we learn the same lesson, like Adam was saying, all over again.
The character development's really lacking.
Yeah, it's just start and stop, and I feel like it's just rehashing to fit a 2-hour runtime. That's what it kind of feels like.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I feel like she gets concerned, especially when she sees Peeta deteriorating in front of her when he's being presented by the Capitol, like from each video he's in, like the stark contrast. And she realizes, like, well, eventually she realizes that it's all a game, but she feels like what she's doing is having a negative impact on Peeta. So she feels responsible for it, which is making her feel more hesitant.
Right. And I think, again, I really think it's the pacing and a lot of it, again, being a part one, really, and then when we go into part two, which again, we'll save that more for that review. I feel like we're kind of just like treading water right now. And there's really no significant plot development in this movie. If you really look at like from start to finish, like a typical story, like we know you have your introduction, you know, beginning, rising action, falling action, conclude. There really isn't any of that here. It's just the real main through arc is just Katniss becoming the face of the rebellion. And we're just to stop and start to really kind of come to a firm conclusion of whether she's going to or not. And I find that really just kind of pointless in my opinion. And the other critique I have, and this is just like a visual point, we really had some really well executed visuals in Catching Fire. I actually really enjoyed the visual style that we had in that movie. You can argue it is a little basic, but I think it worked for that movie, and I think it was really well done. What the hell happened? Who turned off all the lights? This movie is so damn dark throughout the whole thing.
They're underground.
No, and that's okay. And I don't know, Adam, I don't know if you felt the same way too. Again, I have it on my HDR OLED here going on, and I still can't see what's going on through the blacks. It's completely dark, this whole movie.
Yeah, I felt the same exact thing, and it just felt very bland.
Yeah, and it's just very dark. And I understand, like, trying to, you know, again, like Julie said, they're underground, sure. But then the night scenes, I still can't see what's going on. So I don't know. You needed some more lights. So you need to pre-light that a little bit better. Could have been significantly more interesting. All the actors, though, I will say, do a fantastic, you know, they do the job that they're supposed to do. I think Jennifer Lawrence does show she's grown into the character a lot more. So she does keep it going, even though I don't really find her dialogue that enjoyable some of the time. You could definitely see the chops of a really great actress here, especially when she does have to have those emotional breakdown scenes. Like I said, the bombing with the hospital. I think she did a really phenomenal job with that. And well, I guess beyond that, it's really hard to talk about this movie because, again, not much really happens, in my opinion. The other big thing, I guess we could talk about the end here. We do find out that Peeta is captured. And Adam, what did you think about the end here? Finding out that Peeta's been brainwashed by the Capitol and hijacked.
Ah, yes, the hijacking. I think that was a fun twist. I guess. I mean, I couldn't help but be like,
okay,
come on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that works.
He leaps out and he starts strangling her, and I'm just like,
I love that. That's such a good twist.
Got a double agent on her hands.
Yeah, and it just feels like there's just no payoff though for the whole thing. I guess that's really what it is.
Maybe it's because it happens at the tail end. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah. And that's weird too, right? Because then I didn't like the ending either to this movie. Because then it's just like, what, she gets strangled by Peeta, And then I'm like, oh, what if the movie went to black right when that happened or something like that? That would have been like a really cool cliffhanger. But no, there's still like a few more minutes of movie that are rolling with her and laying in the hospital bed and everyone. I don't know. I really, again, there's just so much more you could have done, I think, with that. That could have been interesting, but they just kind of failed to execute anything. And I guess that really is, like, again, the detriment of this movie. And unfortunately, I know if you guys are here for a longer review, there's really not much to say about this movie. A lot of our discussion, I think, is ultimately going to come down to part 2. So with that all being said, let's put a big number on this one, guys. I'm going to give The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 a 6 out of 10.
I have a message for President Snow. You can torture us and bomb us and burn our districts to the ground. But do you see that? Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
I really didn't find too much about this movie. I can't really fault it too much because it is a setup movie. So ultimately, I think part 2 is where a lot of this is going to have to lean on. But on average, I really didn't have a great time with this. It was really boring. I really don't think I could want to watch this one again. Part 2, maybe I'll have a different feeling about it. And I do have some feelings as a collective about both of them. But Mockingjay Part 1, it's too dark. I can't see what's going on. I think the actors did a fine job. But again, the plot just really doesn't move forward enough for me. But it's a weird spot, right? It's one of those movies where I kind of have to watch Part 1 to understand what's going to happen in Part 2. So they're kind of forever linked and kind of like a necessary evil to go into the next half of the movie. But obviously, this is just artificially inflated to make 2 movies, and I'm so glad we're over that trend. If you're gonna watch Hunger Games and you plan on watching Part 2, you're gonna unfortunately kind of have to watch Part 1 kind of to circle into that. So again, necessary evil. I don't necessarily enjoy myself. Adam, how about you? What do you think on this one?
I am going to agree with you and give Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 a 6 out of 10.
I hope that wasn't important. Okay, volunteer forces. Good. What else?
Oh, when she sang that song for Little Rue.
Oh, yeah, we didn't get choked up at that. You know, I like you better, Effie, without all that makeup.
Oh, I like you better sober.
I think that's a sufficient score. Like, I still enjoyed the scenes that we got to a certain extent. But I mean, beyond that, I wish I could skip this movie. I really do.
Can't. That's the problem.
No, that is the problem. And so that's why I think it still warrants enough of a score to, at least be a 6 out of 10. But for the most part, there's not really much that happens.
No, and again, I think we're just kind of drawn to it because we already like the characters, not so much anything new evolved or invested in.
I'm here because I have to be.
Yeah, exactly. That sucks. It's like school. You're here because you have to be. All right, Julie, how about you? What do you think?
Let me put on my rose-colored glasses. I'm going to give Mockingjay Part 1 a 7.7 out of 10.
You asked me to convince you that I was in love with Peeta. Haven't I at least done that?
Miss Everdeen, it's the things we love most that destroy us. I want you to remember that I said that. Don't you think I know your friends are in the tribute center? Cut them off.
Listen, I've gone through like a roller coaster of emotions with this movie. Is it my favorite out of the whole series? No, it's definitely my least favorite. I've grown to appreciate the politicking more upon like repeated viewings of it. The little action that there is, I think, is well done, aside from the bombing of District 13. I love watching Peeta's interviews with Caesar Flickerman and seeing like him deteriorate. I love Plutarch working with Coin and seeing their two, opposing, philosophies on how to do propaganda and how to win a war.
The whole movie.
The whole movie, yeah. But it's not my favorite, but I can't go lower than I can't go into the 6 range.
I don't know. I think you got some rose-colored glasses with some
gold,
gold brims, and I don't know what you got going on over there. I can't agree with that. I'm sorry. I understand wanting to like this movie because I think I do want to like this movie.
It has its merit.
And I've come to appreciate the series more, as I said earlier on in this review. And it's kind of just a big letdown because it's just no need for it to have been this long or split into 2 movies. Like, it's just clearly there's no reason there because they didn't have enough content, obviously, or they couldn't organize what content they had to make this into 2 parts, and that's very clear by watching this. And it's a slog.
In a recent interview, the director said he regretted doing it.
Yeah, I regretted somewhat watching it too, but it's kind of how it is at this point. But that being said, what do you guys think below on Mockingjay Part 1? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Where do you guys stand? Are you guys happy that we're kind of done with this whole Part 1, Part 2 thing? Because God, I so am. I'm so over that. That was not a good trend. Kind of fell the wayside of 3D, honestly, at this point, where at least it didn't last as long. 3D, had a little bit more staying power, unfortunately, but it's just one of those trends. Hollywood likes to try things, and they're just not always successful, and this is clear evidence why. But again, let us know what you guys think in the thoughts below, and make sure you check out Part 2 of this video, where we take a look at Mockingjay Part 2, which will be coming up in the next one. But thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That's Adam and Julie. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll catch you guys next time. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.